Hello, welcome to Little Smiles International School Basic 1 online tutorial. Our subject for today is science. Science, and it is taken from strand 1. Strand 1, diversity of matter. Diversity of matter. Substrand 1, living and non-living things. Living and non-living things. Indicator 1, description of different kinds of things. Description of different kinds of things. We are going to look at how things in our environment look like and how we can describe them. How they also behave. Things in our environment, meaning things that are around us. Let's go to the board. The things around us can be grouped into living things and non-living things. So, kids, if you look at the things around us in our environment, they can be grouped into living things and non-living things. So right now, as you are watching me, look at the things around you. The sofa, the television, your brother, your younger sister, all those things can be grouped under living things and non-living things. Let's look at living things. What are living things? Living things are natural materials, meaning they were created by God. They are natural materials that have life in them. Living things are natural materials that have life in them. So all natural materials, meaning all things that were created by God and they have life in them, are called living things. There are two groups of living things. So living things can also be grouped into two, namely animals and plants. Animals and plants. So animals, including human beings, and plants are the only forms of living things that we have on our earth. Living things can be grouped into two, that is animals and plants. Let's look at some examples of living things. We have human beings as living things. Odum plant is a form of a tree, and it is a living tree, a living thing. Cock. Cock is an animal, and it is also a living thing. We have the maize plant. It is also a living thing. Dog, and a lot more. Any other animal you can think of, both the wild and the domestic, and any other plant you can also think of, are all examples of living things. Why do we call these things living things? There are some special characteristics that make us classify them or group them under living things. Let's look at these special characteristics that make these things living things. Characteristics of living things. 1. Living things breathe in air to live. So all living things need air to live. Without air, living things cannot live. 2. Living things take in water. All living things, that is animals and plants, need water to survive. Living things need light and food to survive. That's number 3. Living things need light and food to survive. Both plants and animals need light and food to survive. That's to sustain their life. 4. Living things grow. Living things at a point in time increases in size and height. That is growth. 5. Some living things move by themselves. That is animals. They move by themselves. Yes. 6. Living things reproduce young ones. Meaning living things can give rise to their young ones of their own kind. 7. Living things die. These this tells us that living things can lose the life in them. When living things lose the life in them, we call it death. So living things die. Let's look at the other form or the other group of things that we have in the environment. That is non-living things. We are done with living things. So we are going to look at non-living things. Non-living things. Non-living things are things that do not have life in them. Non-living things are things that do not have life in them. Unlike the living things that have life in them, non-living things do not have life in them. Meaning, their characteristics are going to be different from that of the living things. The way they behave will be different from that of living things. Let's look at some examples of non-living things. Things that do not have life in them. We have stone. Stone do not have life in it. Chair, house, car, aeroplane, and a lot more. Why do we call these things non-living things? Let's look at their characteristics, things that make us classify these things under non-living things. So, characteristics of non-living things. 1. Non-living things do not need air to live. Unlike the living things that need air. For example, as I'm standing here, I'm breathing in and out air because I am a living thing. But non-living things do not need air to live. Look at this thing. It doesn't need air to live because it is a non-living thing. If you look at this book, it is also a non-living thing. It doesn't need air to live. So the first characteristic of non-living things is that they do not need air. Whether there is air or there is no air, living things, non-living things are still non-living things. 2. Non-living things do not need water to live. You drink water, I drink water. Sometimes we do water our flowers around our houses because plants also need water. But non-living things do not need water to live. If you pick the stone that we made mention of, stone do not need water to live. Our chairs do not need water to live. The sofas in our room do not need water to live. Number 3, the third characteristics of non-living things. Non-living things do not need light and food to survive. Sometimes it is very funny when you're in the room and the lights goes off, you start shouting for mommy and daddy. Do you hear the sofas and the television in the room shouting? No. They don't need light to survive. If you don't get light, you'll be shouting because you need light. And you also need food. You complain to mommy, I'm hungry. The chairs in the room never complain that they are hungry because they don't need food or light to survive. 4. Non-living things do not grow. They remain as they are. This thing will remain like this forever. It can never increase in size and in height. But when they gave birth to me, I was very small. But as time went by, I began growing, and now I'm like this. You are also growing because you're a living thing. But non-living things do not grow. They don't increase in size, and they don't increase in height. Number 5. Non-living things do not move by themselves. If I put my stick down, the stick can never follow me. Non-living things cannot move by themselves. If your father's car is there and your father don't drive it, the car cannot go to town by itself because the car is a non-living thing. 6. Non-living things do not reproduce young ones. They don't give birth, they don't lay eggs, and they don't give rise to young ones. This stick cannot give birth to a baby. But your mother was able to give birth to a baby because your mother is a living thing. This stick is a non-living thing. houses are non-living things. They cannot give birth to young ones. They can't reproduce. The last one, non-living things do not die. They don't even have life in them for them to lose it. Non-living things do not have life in them to lose it, so they don't die. The stone is always a stone. It doesn't die. So, please, below this tutorial, download this work and answer them. Present them at the school premises for marking. Please don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel. We will meet again in our next tutorial. Until then, bye-bye.